Welcome back. Chad has signed a deal with Glencore plc to restructure more than $1 billion in debt in an agreement that will help the African nation to avoid a financial crunch. Under the terms of the agreement, the loan's maturity is extended to 12 years, while Chad will receive a grace period of 2 years. The rate on the loan is also reduced to the benchmark LIBOR interest rate plus 2% from LIBOR plus 7.5%, while Glencore will guarantee the supply of oil for Chad's domestic refining requirements for the duration of the contract. Glencore and its banks agreed in late 2015 to restructure 2 oil for cash loans with Chad dating from 2013 and 2014, extending the repayment to 7 years from an initial 4 years. And Burkina Faso is looking for a new partner to mine the world's largest manganese deposit after rights disputes thwarted 2 earlier attempts to develop the $1 billion project. Pan-African Minerals, a unit of Timmins Mining Corporation, was told to stop production at the Tambo mine in 2015 following a change in leadership in the West African nation. The company then petitioned the International Court of Arbitration in Paris to prevent its permit from being withdrawn, but the case is still pending. With estimated reserves of 100 million metric tons, Tambo is the world's largest resource of manganese. Tambo was the focus on an earlier rights dispute between Burkina Faso and Dubai-based Wadi Al Investment LLC, which signed an exploration agreement in 2017. The dispute was settled in 2013. And Nigeria LNG has exported 308,000 tons of LNG worth 97.24 billion naira so far in February. The LNG Bonny 2, LNG Ogun, and Golo Bear carries each transported 70,000 tons, while the LNG Enugu carried 68,000 tons, and the Nave Bellatrix took 30,000 tons. Our LNG price is also said to have risen so far. Let's talk to Iritunde Shole, one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company, to tell us what is driving these commodities. Iritunde is also a student of mathematics at the London School of Economics. Iritunde, thank you very much for coming again on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Right. We've seen the LNG's contribution to export revenue 5 years ago, which was about 5%, and now it has risen to 14%. What would you say is driving this growth?
Okay, so the export earnings in Nigeria are mainly determined to 3 things. So oil, gas, and then non-oil exports such as commodities. Now, in particular, oil exports, make up the largest part, of our earnings and the key driver of our exports. So 5 years ago, the price of oil was about maybe $96 a barrel, and now it's trading around $65 a barrel. So we're not even getting up to 70% of what we had 5 years ago, and as a result, that significantly affected our revenue. So whereas we were getting maybe around $90 billion in terms of our exports, now we're receiving $53 billion. So in terms of LNG, well, LNG revenues have not actually significantly increased over the period, but however, relative to the low amount of exports that we're receiving, in terms of the value, it's worth more.
All right, so can you talk us through the trend in the global LNG price and perhaps the implications for Nigeria?
Okay, so like any other commodity, like any other asset, could be volatility. So in LNG's terms, so what we've experienced is, changing temperature shifts. So back in November, December, things were very cold, but, as of recently, things are warming up. So America, for instance, which is a large demand of gas, as in, let's take Massachusetts as an example. So on Saturday, the temperature was about -5 degrees. And as of yesterday, it's now, risen to 23 degrees. Now, in particular, when it comes to LNG, it's a futures market. So the gas that, we're using right now was determined, in terms of price and supply, maybe last month, even the month before that. And so the gas that we're going to use, in March and April, that's being determined now. And given that temperatures, are increasing, market sentiment is telling us that, there's not going to be as much demand, for this gas. And as a result, the markets have clearly shown this because, since January, the price has gone down by about 23%. What does this mean for Nigerian revenues? Well, in particular, when it comes to LNG, I don't believe that it's too volatile in the sense that although it suffers from price fluctuations, I feel like it will still give about $5 to $6 billion in terms of its revenue. One thing that will probably drive revenues is really oil exports, and given that the price is steadily increasing, what might happen is that LNG is not worth as much in terms of overall exports.
Now, looking back here in Nigeria, the gas constraint here from on-grid power is in excess of about 1,200 megawatts. Yet Nigeria is exporting gas. Is that not a contradiction?
I would argue that it's not a contradiction, but I feel like to answer the question, you're asking, should things be efficient or should things be fair? Now, if you're to ask, the typical Nigerian consumer that, oh, would you like to pump all the gas, into the power supply? Of course, they would say yes. Many Nigerian consumers would like, to sleep well at night, with good air conditioning, for instance. However, but to take that kind of view would be then saying that, the power supply problem is purely, based on gas constraints. And, there's so many other factors that are involved. For instance, we have transmission line problems, we have distribution problems. I mean, to take gas from where it is to where it's needed, is extremely expensive at the moment. So if I'm to take economists' view and ask them the same question, I feel like they'd argue that, what we're doing right now as a country is great. We've, kind of got a balance where, some of our gas is being exported and some of our gas is being used, in the domestic economy. Because right now, as, I've said before, LNG gives about $5 to $6 billion of revenue. And I believe what is needed right now is to continue exporting, and getting that revenue, and then now invest that revenue, into the domestic economy. So, when things are more efficient, you can look at a real range of resources.
Thank you very much, Iritunde. I guess you're going back to school today?
I'm going back to school.
I wish you luck.
Thank you very much.
And that was Iritunde, one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company and, of course, a student at the London School of Economics. So on that note, we draw the curtain on today's edition of the program. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chimezi Obi Iwago.